we present Denis Quilley as Phaethon, Marion Grimaldi as Venus, and Max Adrian as the narrator in The Tragedy of Phaethon, a comedy by Donald Cotton, with music by Alan Owen.
Look at these legs. Not those, but these, with primitive, inverted knees. Although I grant you some of those have cloven hooves instead of toes. Look, silhouetted on the blinds we draw across our darkened minds. What furry cheeks and pointed ears are lent against our latent fears. What frosted nostrils and what eyes are waiting to materialize and track our hurt, uncertain souls through what frenetic farandoles. It is not any use to say they are not there or go away. They are and will not. In our pride, our virtues are personified in our own image, gods whose great conceptions are immaculate. So think what demons, therefore, must personify our lurking lust. It's most convenient, you see, to say the devil tempted me, or equally pursue the path of prejudice on God's behalf. We tread our pleasures to the pipes of Pan and other archetypes. These gods and devils dwell in mists emitted by psychiatrists today, but once upon a time in Arcady enjoyed a fine apparent independence. They were manifested in a way which current ministers of state have grown disposed to emulate. Descending from Olympus at the least occasion, they will chat, belabor, bully, and berate their unconcerned electorate, neurotically to insist upon the fact that they exist. Why they are venerated, nay, are tolerated, is hard to say. The same with gods. The smallest doubt about their status puts them out, and once aroused, they race aghast to smite the rash iconoclast. So much as preface. Now be kind enough to bear about your mind these few remarks, whilst brooding on the tragedy of Phaethon. Now Phaethon was the very type of orthodoxy, played the pipe because he was a shepherd, but not fluently because he put religion first. He was a man self-consciously Arcadian, whose every waking moment saw him more bucolic than before. This was a source of some alarm to Venus, who had chanced her arm, disastrously as it transpired, in paying court to this admired and admirable paragon of all the virtues. Now read on.
You've been practicing, haven't you? And I suppose for exactly the number of hours stipulated by your handbook. Oh, very well. Don't answer me. I'll just sit here and eat a grape until you've finished.
I think I'll join you. There, that's over for today. What were you saying?
Oh, never mind.
Oh, no, please go on. It's time for my devotions anyway. And so convenient to have you here, instead of trudging all the way across the hill to find your shrine. I can worship while you're talking.
But, Phaethon, I don't feel in the least like talking when you worship me, my love.
Oh, but I'm afraid you must. If we're to have a satisfactory religious relationship, that is. I want to treasure your every divine revelation. They have a great influence on me.
Oh, I wish they had. Then you'd know how much I love you.
Now, steady on. I have to worship you, remember, not vice versa.
Well, surely the goddess of love, besides being well grounded in the theory of her profession, should at least attempt to become proficient in the practical. Our basic conflict seems to be twixt sacred and profane conceptions of this love that we are moved to entertain. Unfortunately, no degree of compromise, it seems to me, is possible, and probably we're fated to remain just good friends until the story ends. I, the earthly, you, the soulful acolyte of love, hence the worthy, rather doleful sentiments above. I, the flesh, and you, the spirit, you confess and I admit it. Hence the oddest and the awful paradox is plain. I, the goddess, you, the mortal, sacred and profane. Since this dichotomy began, regrettably it's true that never has there been a man to reconcile the two. Why is it that no one can enable an essential femme fatale ecstatically to span the gulf and start anew? Heart and mind, happily combined. He, my Savior and Redeemer, He, my King of Kings. I, the Deo ex machina, lurking in the wings. He, the clay at quintessential. I, the gay but reverential. He, the promise, I, the portal to the astral plane. For the goddess and the mortal, sacred and
Venus, I wonder, would it help if I were to tell you that I myself am not altogether as other men?
I can't think what you mean to imply.
Oh, only that I'm a sort of semi-deity on my father's side.
A semi-deity?
Oh, there are no myths about me whatever, nothing as grand as that. But there it is, I do have divine blood.
Do you really? How very exhilarating for you. I suppose you realize that you've just ruined our relationship.
I really don't see how. Have I offended you in some way?
Oh, no. You've merely pointed out that in all probability I'm your aunt.
Venus.
I do think you might have mentioned it before. I so detest all this incessant incest. It isn't smart. It isn't even funny anymore. It's just so downright unavoidable. On Olympus, that is. In fact, I come down here to get away from it all. And now you tell me we're related.
Oh, I hardly think so. No, I wouldn't go as far as that. My father's Helios, you see.
Oh, Helios. Oh, well, that's all right then, one of that lot.
What the blazes do you mean, one of that lot?
Well, forgive me, but I mean, well, all those dreary elementals, Cronus, Uranus, and so forth, well, they carry very little weight today. Which one was Helios? What does he do? I can never remember.
You really ought to pay more attention to your basic theology if you don't want to become rationalized out of existence. I mean, if the gods don't take themselves seriously, it won't be any wonder if they're overwhelmed by galloping technology, and serve them right.
But I only asked what he actually does for an immortality.
My father is responsible, Venus, for maintaining the whole composition of the cosmos. Our understanding of man's place in nature and nature's place in a properly regulated society is entirely based on his inspired conceptions.
Oh.
It was Helios who first revealed that the Earth was flat and, rather surprisingly, rested on the back of an elephant. Well, you can imagine how that disclosure revolutionized our thinking, particularly when he silenced reactionary criticism by placing the elephant on the back of a tortoise. And then he went further and declared that we were, in fact, the somewhat cyclonic center of the spheres, in which the stars, the moon, the comets, and the gods revolve, which was a lesson to us all, and increased our self-esteem in the most gratifying manner. So you see, if it weren't for Helios, science would be nowhere.
But what does he do?
Do? Why, he drives the chariot of the sun.
Oh, Phaethon! Apollo is the sun god. Everybody knows that. Look, there he is now, just coming out from behind that cloud.
My dear child, Apollo is at best a sort of senior civil servant in my father's department. Helios actually drives the chariot, and it isn't easy.
No one ever sees him, whereas I often see Apollo. So he really cannot grumble if he hasn't got a cult. He should make himself more available, learn to mingle with the masses.
That would be quite foreign to his nature. When he does descend, he likes to be alone with Mother, as is only natural.
Yes, I was wondering about that. How often do they meet?
Well, every night, of course. My mother meets him outside the Pillars of Hercules, and then they have to row like mad to the other side of Ethiopia before take-off in the morning.
They row? How very strenuous. But in that case, what happens to the chariot?
Now, look here. It is entirely this preoccupation with trivial quibbles which leaves the door wide open for agnosticism. And I must say I'm surprised to hear it from you, of all people. What were you doing in an oyster shell with no clothes on in the first place? No, don't answer me. I'd rather not know. It would probably spoil everything. But you see what I mean? It just doesn't do to ask questions.
But has it never occurred to you to wonder how in these circumstances your conception was achieved?
There happened to be an eclipse, which was variously held to herald a drought, a flood, and the end of the world, whereas in actual fact it was only me.
Oh, Phaethon.
So, if only by virtue of my advanced publicity I am a person of some consequence.
But, Phaethon, there isn't a spark of divinity in you.
Oh, you think not, do you? I'll show you whether I'm divine or not.
And how do you propose to do that?
You'll see. I shall speak to my father this evening as soon as he lands.
Why wait till then?
He mustn't be distracted while he's driving.
What are you going to do? Ask him to let you drive? I really don't see you at the reins of a Shetland pony, let alone the chariot of the sun.
Oh, don't you? Well, I may just possibly do that. Yes, when the sun comes over the horizon tomorrow, you just look and see who's driving. That'll show you.
Oh, you will wave, won't you?
I may nod in passing. We sons of gods must not be too familiar, or our public image suffers.
Oh, what a pity. I had hoped that after your apotheosis you might be more available.
Oh, I hardly think so. No, there'll be so much to do, you see, once I've taken my due place at the right hand of Helios. I'm not at all satisfied with the state of the world in general, or religion in particular, and I expect to be giving a series of lectures.
I shall look forward to that, then.
Well, I certainly hope to see you there, Venus. I've been profoundly disturbed this afternoon by your obvious misinterpretation of love, and that's only one of the things I shall have to attend to.
Busy old soul. And when do you expect to be back from your well-earned solstice?
Well, let me see. The journey tonight, the flight tomorrow, and then, if it can be arranged, a quick look at the nether regions. Yes, I think I can say confidently that on the third day I shall return.
This messianic syndrome's far from mild megalomania, and tends, untreated, to increase until one's premature decease. Alas for Phaethon, one sees this mercifully rare disease had caught him bending, as alone he prints his prentice footsteps home.
a shepherd green abiding in Arcady was I, with no intent of riding in majesty on high. While sheep were safely grazing, I trod the antic hay, and set the nymphs a-gazing in no uncertain way, at gambolling and rambling and whistling o'er the lea. The smallest little ploughboy had nothing over me. But when my pipe and tabor are placed upon the shelf, the dignity of labor can look out for itself. For now my true vocation is splendidly revealed, as bearing no relation to that sheep-infested field. I'll rise above the skies above, while sing ascending larks, venite adoremus, and similar remarks. Gloria in excelsis, and so on and etc. Because I am and no one else is the son of Helios. Oh, glory, hallelujah, I'll rapturously bring mankind a happy new year and all that sort of thing. Censorious yet glorious, all hallowed and aglow, a self-appointed savior in dolce jubilo. A shepherd green abiding in Arcady was I, but now I'll go a-riding in majesty on high.
You sound very cheerful, Phaethon. Is there a red sky again?
It isn't evening yet, Mother. I'm home early.
Phaethon, why? You're not ill, are you? Or is it your religion troubling you again? I know that look. You must take care.
I am perfectly well, thank you, Mother. In fact, I feel translated to a new dimension.
Oh, Phaethon, that's your fault. We never know where to look for you these days. Sometimes it seems to me you have no sense of responsibilities whatever. It's time that you decided what it is you want from life.
I have decided. I am going to follow in my father's hoofprints clean across the sky.
Oh, do be practical. He wouldn't thank you. And in any case, when did you last see your father?
I've never met him.
There you are, then.
That's the point.
What is?
That is why I want to meet him.
It isn't feasible just now. One day, perhaps.
But why not now?
Oh, don't keep on. Because he's busy. It's quite his hardest time of year with equinoxes coming on. Perhaps we'll see in the winter.
I cannot wait till winter. I intend to attempt some ascensions in the summer sunshine.
How can you ever say such a thing?
Well, it wasn't easy, I admit. Do you realize that there isn't a single reference to me in the whole of Hesiod? I've simply got to take my rightful place in theology before I'm passed over in favor of a younger man.
I don't see why. You never talked this way before. One god in the family has always seemed more than enough to me. Why can't you learn to leave things to your father? Trust in him.
Father's past it. On Olympus, I'm told, the gods are saying that Helios does not exist.
They would never dare say that.
Only today, one of them referred to our whole family as, I think I'm right, dreary elementals. She implied that we'd been superseded.
She did? Who did? Not that dreadful creature, Venus.
Oh, I think she meant it nicely.
Really, Phaethon, women twist you round their fingers. Let me tell you about Venus.
Yes, you have done several times.
She is no better than she should be. Had to change her name from Aphrodite. Not that it fooled anybody for a moment. She was born in what I can only call the most disgusting circumstances imaginable. Your uncle Cronos happened to be mutilating your grandfather Uranus with a sickle at the time, so, of course, we were in a position to know.
Quite so.
Just remember, we were Titans long before the gods were thought of. Never let them denigrate you. Think about your cousin.
Oh, Prometheus?
Yes. Zeus maintained his liver trouble was cirrhosis when everyone knew it was eagles.
Oh, was it?
Yes, he was a martyr to them. Always disagreed with things that ate him ever since a child. And now the Olympians are trying to undermine your father, are they?
That's why I thought...
You don't think, Phaethon. That's your trouble. Give these Olympians half a chance and they'll dismiss you as a non-entity. Then where will you be? You must show them who you are and who your father is before it's too late.
Well, that's why I was going...
Back to Venus, I suppose. You're doing nothing of the sort. You must develop a sense of occasion and rise to it at once. There's a place for you in the hierarchy, and there's nothing for it, Phaethon, but to go and fill it now. Well, come along and don't just stand there. We're going to meet your father.
Thus Phaethon embraces his quintessent metamorphosis from simple shepherd postulant to universal luminant, emboldened by an only son's maternal aspirations. How often are we not impressed when those who claim to love us best endorse our own opinions by some ego-bumping, thumping lie? Would but some splendid friend forbear to stimulate our self-esteem towards exertion, and declare instead that we should sit and dream, snug in salivary towers of taste, nor rashly rush to hasty waste. Ah, would but such a friend, I say, remark on our essential lack of all those qualities which may assist success, and then attack our poor pretense to any sort of logical, constructive thought. Then should we weld him to our soul with hoops of steel, as someone said, and cherish him who heaps the coal of fire on our pretentious head. But no, he don't exist, nor can, for if he did, we'd loathe the man. There is just this: however stirred our vain ambitions chance to be, a siblings' quibblings may be heard, composed of spite and sheer ennui, as witness typically these sisters of Phaethon, the Heliades. Bracket. The following device involving Phaethon's sisters we had borrowed upon good advice from Eliot, but found that he, in turn, had merely recomposed Euripides. So, bracket closed.
Look, if nobody minds, we would like to go on and on and on interminably. No one has consulted us about our feelings in this matter.
They never do consult us about anything, in fact.
And if at all possible, we would rather not go down to posterity as being merely Phaethon's sisters.
We have our own ambitions and a lot of likely lusts, which we are most anxious to indulge.
Whilst we are still young enough to be ruined by them.
Why should we find our fate ordained by someone else's destiny, and all unwilling be dragged spitting into mythology at the foot of Phaethon's fable?
Now it will all come to nothing. Nothing but doom. Nothing but death.
Doom
And death.
and disaster.
Nothing but these. It never does. And it simply isn't fair of Phaethon. Simply is not fair. Why could he not remain as doth the axolotl, upon occasion immature, and take to celibacy, or more probably the bottle? I've never shared his flame for apostolic vision, but this is what I must acquire, and cite my psyche somewhat higher. Now Phaethon's not religion. I long to be pursued by someone like Apollo, repeatedly to be seduced, if only he could be induced rapaciously to follow. I'd gladly undergo translation to a pigeon, if that were the price, but I must bar my chronic nymphomania. Now Phaethon's got religion. Unhappy is our lot, how bitterly one sees that deaf and blind to all advice, he'll make his sisters pay the price of being Heliades. Oh, Father, hear the prayer of daughters 1 to 7, who count their chickens in advance and hope to have another chance when Phaethon has gone to heaven. To heaven.
And heaven sent their Phaethon flies agog to metamorphosize, with all the arrogance of one approaching perihelion. However, Picture now a large, barnacular, beribboned barge, broad bottom bounding to the far-flung east of Ethiopia, all built of brass and beaten bronze, and drawn by 12 embarrassed swans. It plies past heathen lands forlorn and non-emergent towards the dawn. With brooding eye and drooping beard, the helmsman, Helios, has steered both ship and conversation round about the point, but run aground upon the fact that he has come reluctantly to sire a son whose every utterance betrays acquaintance with progressive plays and modern music, art and such. He doesn't like him very much.
I do wish you wouldn't keep sitting on my right hand. I'm trying to steer.
I'm sorry, Father. I was about to explain my theory that both church and state must ultimately come to rely on the arts for the dissemination of new ideas.
What's the matter with the old ones? They were good enough for Kronos.
But they don't reflect the times we live in. That's what art does, and that's what religion must do if it's to have any place in the modern world. It must be of its time. Kronos had no idea of time. That's why he went under.
So that was why. I had thought it was something to do with Zeus and a thunderbolt, but I must have been misinformed. I wasn't there myself, you understand. If one is a god, one can't be everywhere.
But you should try to be. That's exactly my point. You should be more in touch. I mean, take this barge.
Thank you.
Now, just look at it. As a status symbol, it's completely outmoded. All these swans and lost souls, who are they supposed to impress? They wouldn't merit a round of applause in a third-rate pantomime. The whole idea is a Rococo anachronism. You know, as far as these personal appearances are concerned, I really think you'd do far better to let me handle them for you.
Oh, you do you?
Yet not in any sense of usurping your prerogatives, I assure you. Merely as your representative on Earth.
Yes, I thought we'd get round to that eventually. Do you really have the brazen, flagrant face to suggest that I should abdicate in your favor?
Oh, you're overestimating my ambition. I should be quite content in a subsidiary role, to act in an advisory capacity as a sort of liaison officer. Tell people what a magnificent job you're doing, how busy you are, that sort of thing. A few words in the right quarter, and the Titans would be back on top in no time. And Zeus would be nowhere. That's the point. Once you've got a public image...
And for this service, you would require...
Oh, merely some form of credential. Some little thing to prove my divinity.
What had you in mind?
Well, how would you feel about letting me drive your chariot tomorrow?
Outraged. My blood would boil the very suggestion, so don't make it. The horses, well, there are 4 of them, and I assure you they belch cosmic dust at the drop of a sunspot. The radiation is something enormous. If you weren't roasted alive before midday, you'd be flung origin over terminus into eternity long before nightfall. You would be... well, yes, I wonder. Keen on the idea, are you?
Oh, I can't begin to tell you.
Then don't. After all, you are my only son, and would no doubt want to step into my winged heels one day.
Well, of course.
Precisely. Yes, of course you would, just so. Then I don't see that one brief anticipation of that event could do you any particular harm. It might even do good, in fact.
Thank you, Father. I promise that you won't regret it.
I'm sure I won't. There's just one thing. If you should at any moment find that you can't control the horses, if you find things going wrong, don't come running to me for a resurrection, that's all.
So now farewell to Phaethon with his transference from fact to myth. Henceforward we can but assume the circumstances of his doom. We know exactly what occurs from reading his biographers, but for some reason they are shy of telling us precisely why. So manifestly in his prime he'd find it possible to climb across the skies, one would suppose, with 4 such stallions as those, and such a vehicle. Why then should he come crashing down again, with such scant ceremony smite the hapless anthropophagite in Ethiopia? In vain we look for an insurance claim. Moreover, we discover that no board of mild inquiry sat, nor sought with unabated breath the circumstances of his death. But this we do find. For a time, religion suffers a decline, and pandemonia increase post-dating his supposed decease. With this in mind, we may attempt to reconstruct the whole event and trace the motives which combined to stab our hero from behind. May I remind you, all so far is well authenticated, bar some small dramatic license. Now we have to speculate. Somehow, if you remember, he had swayed his father to the escapade. Now, let us join them as they pledge their partnership upon the edge of terra firma with a form of shortened service. Comes the dawn.
Now you will kneel before me and grant your affirmation to the following credo.
Is that absolutely necessary?
It's customary.
I can't see why.
In that case, you must try to look on it as an oath of loyalty.
Loyalty to what?
To me, to the whole cosmogony, to all accepted belief, and consequently to mankind in general, who depend on revealed truth for the perpetuation of a workable modus vivendi.
Well, surely that's the whole point of the operation.
Yes, but during your flight, you're bound to gain possession of a certain amount of classified information, which in the wrong hands would jeopardize the safety of the realm of metaphysics, and you have to fortify your faith against it.
Oh, very well.
Now then, listen. This is of the utmost importance.
Do you believe that from chaos came Uranus, ruler of all in the heavens, who begat amongst others the Cyclops and Titans, yours very truly and Kronos? I do. Do you further believe that Kronos was banished after a misunderstanding, whereupon Zeus became Lord of Olympus, while I was absent on business? So I have always heard. Would you postulate, if pressed, that the earth is flat and circular, foundation of the hemispheric sky, and that it rests on the back of an elephant, which in turn stand upon a tortoise? I would maintain it stoutly, even in the face of denial. Would you then agree that the only permissible line of theological inquiry might be to discover what the elephant and the tortoise were playing at in the first place, and what, in the name of all that's mythological, the tortoise is managing to stand on? Such is my constant preoccupation. Have you, however, decided that the answer is in all probability so absurd as to be scarcely relevant to the human predicament, and have you therefore resolved to take the whole of the above on trust? I have. Then repeat after me. I hereby renounce philosophic disputation. I hereby renounce philosophic disputation. Hoping to arrive at complete understanding. Of matters in the life hereafter. Such is my firm belief. Such is my firm belief.
I say, is it really your belief?
Well, naturally. I mean, isn't it yours?
Well, of course it is, my boy, or in public at any rate. Never mind, it's the act of affirmation that matters. Even in the primitive church, profession is 9 points of the law. As long as you remember that and don't start theorizing on your own account.
Oh, I would never presume.
That's right. Then I'm sure you'll manage very nicely. Look, here's your mother with the horses. It must be 0 hour, or at least only slightly below. The countdown will be starting directly. Well, what are you waiting for? Get in the chariot and take the reins. Do you think 0 is nothing?
You will drive carefully, won't you, Phaethon? You've got all day, you know, to get there. Please do nothing rash.
Have you grasped the broad essentials?
Yes, I think so.
Just remember everything your father told you, and I'm sure you'll re-enter the atmosphere beautifully.
Yes, Mother.
Now, you'll be in constant touch with me at ground control. And, of course, a score of other intermediary stations, most of which, as I need hardly remind you, are in the hands of the opposition. I I think we can still trust Helicon and the Muses to be sympathetic, but both Parnassus and Olympus would be delighted at anything which they could use as evidence of their technical superiority. So just confine your observations to remarks about the weather. Well, I suppose I mustn't keep you. Very best of luck, and see you at the Pillars of Hercules this evening.
Goodbye, Phaethon.
Goodbye, Mother. Goodbye, Father. Goodbye.
This perfect launching should have sped him into orbit. Now instead, all unprepared, he will have found the hitherto substantial ground unprecedentedly begin to spin perversely about him. And as it spins, revealing that it incidentally isn't flat, he'll notice its foundation is all innocent of tortoises, and furthermore it will appear to be decidedly a sphere. Imagine, therefore, if you can, how this might well unhinge a man whose every raison d'etre is lent upon a vanished elephant which stands upon a tortoise. Need I say it undermines his creed and fills him with the wild surmise of one apt to apostatize.
Chaos is come again to all creation. Why did no one explain the situation? I learned at mother's knee the earth was flat. Whatever it may be, it isn't that. And where's the tortoise gone? It's sat upon. Nothing, it seems, is true. Over to you. Phaethon, are you receiving me? Hearing me clear and loud? Faith should be blind to the facts. I remind you of what you so recently vowed. Abide by instructions. Deduce no deductions, conform to the orthodox view. Concerning the earth, it is flat, so assert it. And over to you.
But how can I, Father, when it simply is not so?
I feel the approach of a positively apocalyptic apoplexy. You speak to him, Clymene.
Phaethon, dear, this is your mother. Can you hear me?
Of course he can. Get on with it.
Listen, dear, you mustn't argue with your father about astronomy. He knows far more about it than you can ever hope to.
I'm honestly sorry, Mother, but under the circumstances, I can't agree.
I see no sort of sign, no indication, which does not prove a mine of information. There the moon revolves in strict ellipses, a circumstance which solves the sun's eclipses. Quite a non-Parthenon phenomenon, and not at all a gauge of father's rage. Phaethon, are you receiving me? Phaethon, my boy, beware. I'll give you a warning. Get on with the morning, or else get yourself off the air. You're fast undermining us, and you are assigning yourself to a premature grave. Don't ever come near me, and if you can hear me, don't say a thing, just wave.
Well, is he waving?
I can't tell, dear. He's just gone behind a cloud.
Confound the fellow. Tell him to come out.
Phaethon, dear, it's no use sulking.
I am not sulking, Mother. I am being transported.
Yes, we know that, dear, and very beautiful you look. But your father's extremely cross.
Father is merely being obstructionist, not to say reactionary.
No, not to, dear. You know how it would upset him.
Here am I passing through the very doors of perception, and all he can do is try to slam them in my face.
The boy's unhinged. The ether's gone to his head.
I am quite adequately hinged, thank you, Father, possibly for the first time in my life.
And definitely for the last if I have anything to do with it. Where is he now?
Phaethon, where are you, darling? Mother can't see you.
Up where the comets pay their fleeting visits, everyone must obey the laws of physics. They herald no alarm that I can tell. They offer quiet charm and do it well. No thunderbolts of Zeus, as I did use, merely a cloud of gas with little mass.
Well, at least that's one in the eye for Olympus and the opposition.
Phaethon, are you receiving us? Hearing us loud and clear. We want to remind you that we are behind you, and that goes for everyone here. We're tired of the strictures containing the scriptures on modesty, virtue, and such. The new generation is tuned to your station. Thank you so terribly much.
There you are, you see. The thing's spreading. Don't tell me that was the muses.
No, Helios, darling. It was the Heliades, your daughters.
Venus calling. This is Venus speaking from Olympus.
Yes, it would be.
I have to inform you that first reactions here are unfavorable. However, Zeus is watching the situation closely, and Apollo is standing by to take over at a moment's notice.
That's extremely good of him, but everything is quite under control, thank you. I am about to employ a fail-safe device.
Oh, no. Oh, won't you let me talk to him first?
Certainly not.
But I'm sure he'll listen to me. Phaethon.
Venus, is that you? I told you I was divine, didn't I?
Yes, darling.
Ah, well, I'm not. Neither are you. In fact, nobody is. But that doesn't matter now. Listen, I think you'll be interested in this.
No, you listen to me. Phaethon? Phaethon, are you receiving me? Don't fight your father, please. Frankly, you're the feebler. An orphan terrible is not yet an éminence prise. Your sort of behavior does not suit a savior. Recant your philosophy, do, and cast no aspersions on authorized versions. Out and over to you.
So you're against me too, are you?
Of course I'm not, darling. I just want you to come back to me safely.
Safely? What have I or anyone to fear in the whole wide universe except the inability to comprehend it?
The gods, Phaethon. Fear the gods.
And who am I to fear the gods? My dear girl, I am Phaethon, first of the free thinkers.
I see no sort of gods, no sign of Phoebus. Once, when the pseudopods of blind amoebas crawled in a primeval mud, there may have been some, but now they're gone for good, or I'd have seen some. And you, Venus, I must insist, you don't exist. And whoever Helios be, neither does he.
Phaethon, are you receiving me? I am your father divine, and nobody mocks me. Your heterodoxy is far too ahead of its time. A primitive mystic and polytheistic religion is faulty, no doubt. And now you're a martyr to all its errata. Over to you! And out.
Helios, no! What are you doing?
I'm sorry, Clymene, but there's no other way. He wants rationalism, does he? Very well. I propose to rationalize him out of existence.
But he's your own son!
Precisely. It will make the gesture all the more significant. The ultimate sacrifice. For the sake, I need hardly add, of all mankind.
No!
Father! Father, the horses aren't answering the reins!
Oh, yes, they are. I had the foresight to have the chariot fitted with a remote dual control. I am driving now.
But you're sending me off course! Father! Father, where are you taking me?
You'll soon find out, and you know perfectly well why.
Father!
If such was Phaethon's fate, and this an adequate hypothesis to fit the rudimentary facts which we've inherited, perhaps I may pursue it further still. Let us suppose that Helios will have hesitated to destroy his too enthusiastic boy completely, and content to swerve the chariot's re-entrant curve a few degrees, has let him trace a sad parabola through space for all eternity. Suppose his orbit to be one of those which comets use. Does he return at lonely intervals to burn bright with a cautionary fire above the birth of each Messiah who claims to be the King of Kings? That might explain a lot of things. If so, until he comes again, I leave you with the requiem wrought for him by the Heliades, transmuted into poplar trees for some strange reason. Yes, how true. We need our myths. Indeed we do.
Phaethon is dead, lost and gone forever. Somebody once said, and someone rather clever, death is the bourne whence no traveler returns. That we believe is true. So, Phaethon, leave us to our own concerns. De mortuis, nisi bonum, at least his sad was more unique than common's. Our fate is more unexpected than sublime, doomed to eternal grief, shedding a bitter leaf from time to
That ends The Tragedy of Phaethon, a comedy by Donald Cotton, with music by Alan Owen. This was the cast: Phaethon, Denis Quilley; Venus, Marion Grimaldi; Helios, Alan Dudley; Clymene, Cecile Chevreao. With Valerie Kirkbright, Rosalind Shanks, and Patricia Leventon. The narrator was Max Adrian. The songs of the Heliades were sung by Mary Thomas, Christine Parker, and Margaret Cable. The orchestra was conducted by Alan Owen. The recorded program was produced by Douglas Cleverdon.